This week in the field, mirrorless tech and getting extra reach from our lenses. Hey everyone, I'm Scott Davenport and welcome to In the Field. Thanks for joining me today. Before I go into today's topic, I want to get your photo questions. If you've got questions about camera work, about post-processing, whatever it is photographically, you can leave them in the comments below. You can make it private and send it through my website. However you'd like to get a hold of me, ask those questions. I'll usually turn an answer around in a day or two. And I really think the questions are the way that everybody becomes a better photographer. Hopefully my answer is going to help you out. I can guarantee your question is going to make me think about my photography. I'll get better as a result. We both get better. Win-win. So what I want to talk about today is this feature of at least the Sony cameras, and I think this is in several other mirrorless systems, being able to switch from full frame into APS-C mode. And it's just, a setting in the menus, and you're getting this extra reach out of your lens. And I want to give you the full backstory leading up to the aha moment of realizing, oh gosh, I have this feature and I've never used it, and now I suddenly realize it's time to use it. It's a perfect situation. So a few weeks ago, I shared a photo on the website and social media of a picture at Sunset Cliffs, this area where there's larger segments of rock that are separated from the land. I'd gone out and done some long exposures. Let me take you out there, show you some of that, and then I'll show you what changed about the location. I'm down here at Sunset Cliffs this morning. It's maybe 20 minutes before sunrise, so everything's a nice monochromatic blue right now. It's very quiet other than the ocean. Really like that. This is my kind of style. I'm going to frame up a few shots on this one chunk of rock that's been separated from the rest of the land, and then work my way south along the bluffs, taking in a few more scenes. Tide's going out, so it's revealing a few more of the rocks at the base of the cliffs. Not planning on climbing down there today. This is not a good spot for that kind of access. I'm going to stay up top, stay dry, and work on some more simplistic compositions, weaving lines up the shoreline. And as the sun comes up, I'm hoping the marine layer might catch some color, or at the very least add a little more interest to the sky, and that could make some other interesting compositions as well. I'm going to frame up one more shot of the land here. This isn't as intriguing to me as the previous composition was, but it's still nice. And if anything, it'll just be a snapshot in time of Sunset Cliffs. These cliffs are constantly changing. They're constantly falling down. The signs tell me to stay back, and I'm obeying them and not going across certain lines. So yeah, time to get another setup. I've got a 4-minute exposure going on right now. It took a little bit to dial that in because of changing light conditions. Initially, I would have had a 10-minute exposure, but I played with aperture and ISO to rein that in a little bit. I want to keep the window of time the camera's firing right now relatively short. 4 minutes is still pretty long, but 10 minutes, lighting would have changed so much, the metering would have been completely off and I would have blown out the scene. The sun's starting to come up over the hills to the east, and that will wash out this scene in just a few minutes. I've got one more shot going before I change locations. Doing a very long exposure in this one. I'm going to do a full 8 minutes, and I'm letting the height of the tripod really help me here. These cliffs are not a place to play around on or tempt fate, so I'm staying away from the edge but using the height of the tripod to get up and then angle downward to get the composition that I need. And this is one of those times I'm really happy that I did get this almost 6-foot tripod. It's above my head. I can tilt the camera down at a decent wide angle. I'm maybe about 28 millimeters. I can get the composition I want and not put myself in danger. One more challenge with the long exposures is when you get 10 minutes in and you realize you messed up on one of your settings and have to start over again. So here we go with take 2 of the 10-minute exposure. Oh goody. A photo I came away with from that day I was really happy with. Got a very nice long exposure. It was one of those 10-minute ones. And I shared this a few weeks ago, and here it is again. Just nice curve of the land, water's all smoothed out. Sun hadn't come up so hard to make everything really harsh. It was all good. Now fast forward a few weeks, and a mermaid statue was affixed to the top of this very rock. It's been kind of a buzz all around San Diego for the last week or so as I record this. And I don't know how long this statue is going to last, so I wanted to get down there and take another photo with this mermaid sitting up on the rock. Let me show you a little bit of the footage that I grabbed there. Since my last visit here, a mermaid's been affixed to the top of this rock, and it's been here maybe 2 days, and I'm not sure if the city's going to be tearing it down anytime soon. There's a bunch of news vans around. It's been kind of the talk of the Ocean Beach area since my last visit, so I came down here to grab a few shots of it before it disappears. So not a lot of footage from this outing, but I shared most of this location previously, and I actually spent more of my time chit-chatting with the news folks, finding out what they knew about the city going to take this mermaid down or not, because it's not the first time something's been stuck on top of that particular rock. I did try to recreate the photo that I'd taken before the mermaid arrived, and that came out pretty good, even though it was very, very bright daylight. Putting enough ND filters on it was able to smooth out the water, and compositionally I got pretty close to what I had done a few weeks prior. So that was fun. And then it was, okay, well, you've taken that photo, you've taken a couple of photos of the mermaid on the rock, what else is there really to do? And I met up with my friend Manette down there, and we were chatting. We're both Sony shooters. And we both had this lens here, this 70-200, on our full frame Sony systems. And we wanted more reach. Even at 200 millimeter, you couldn't really get kind of a close-up, almost like a portrait kind of thing for this mermaid. And then it dawned on us, we have these settings in our mirrorless cameras that say, oh, well, pretend you're a crop sensor. And as soon as you do that, your lens becomes no longer a 70-200, but it's like a 140-300. I got 300 millimeter reach. That's exactly what we did. We switched over, we just fired off a few more photos, and got a very different feel on the whole scene. And that's the tip of the week, is leveraging the mirrorless technology. In this case, it was turning on this particular setting in the Sony cameras. It's like it has two functions. One for video, which is like the Super 35. And I think it does some automatic detection if you connect a crop sensor lens to a full frame system. But the other one is just say, turn it on. I want this on for still shots. And that's exactly what we did. Fired off and grabbed a few. And, so I'm going to show a couple of these ones here where shooting at, in the 150 to or so millimeter range, it's a very different feel from being switched over into crop sensor mode and then reaching in at a full 300. Got a much tighter shot, made it much more about the mermaid, and you start to see a lot more of the details. So that's the tip, is exploring that mirrorless tech that you've got. And even those features that you might thought you really didn't care about. I mean, I got a full frame camera for a reason, but I have the option of making it a crop sensor. And in this particular case, it was perfect. It was just what I needed to get a different take on the location and the kind of shot that I'd really wanted to get. Now, a couple of things I will add to this crop sensor setting is it's going to do two things. Number one is you're only using a portion of your sensor, so you get a smaller megapixel photo. For the Sony I have, it's normally a 42 megapixel raw photo that comes out compressed. When you switch into APS-C, it comes in at around 19 to 20, so almost half, right? So it's half of the pixels. The other thing is, at least in Lightroom, it can be a little challenging to figure out what did you actually photograph at in terms of millimeters. So I want to turn over the screen here for a minute. So this is one shot here, which I shot around 120 millimeters. So if we look up in the histogram area, we see 121. And we have focal length 121. Focal length 35 millimeter. That's the key piece. When we see that as the same number as the focal length, all right, I'm shooting in full frame. Now let's look at the photo that I did a closer one of. When you're looking at the histogram area, it still says 200 millimeters. I was racked out entirely at the end of my lens there. But the focal length in 35 millimeter is 300. And that's at least one visual indicator that I've been able to find within the EXIF data that says, aha, you've been shooting in this particular mode. You've got a difference between the effective 35 millimeter focal length and the actual focal length dialed in on your lens. That's going to do it for this week's In the Field. I hope you've enjoyed it, and if you did, please let me know somehow. Comments on the video below, likes, shares, +1s, thumbs up. Social shares are always appreciated. And if you've got questions, again, please send them my way. Love to hear from you. And until next time, my name is Scott Davenport. Happy shooting.